Hey YouTube, it's Dimitri, and today we're going to talk about Fordham's Quantitative Masters here. So I've been doing rankings, I'm perpetually behind, but I think this program is awesome, and I'm going to talk to you about who I think this program is a great fit for, what to look for in the program, things I think that they could improve in the program. This is, again, based on Fordham's program from 2023. They will probably be ranked again in 2024, but without further ado, let's just dive on in. Okay, so the program itself can be finished in as little as 12 months if you rush like a madman through the program. Most students finish this program between 18 and 24 months. So just to give you kind of a perspective here, it is going to be an average program. The program itself actually encourages students to take a little bit longer. So I would actually encourage you guys to take the full 24 months. You will have more time to dig deeper and to learn, especially in this program with the small class sizes, which we'll talk about here in a second. But it has 9 core courses that you're going to be taking. If you're curious what those are, it's going to be financial markets, derivatives, machine learning and econometrics, time series econometrics, programming for finance, summer project and internship, research seminar 1, research seminar 2, and business communications for quants. Again, as of 2023, they are updating and making things different, I think, for 2024. But this is the core courses here. I think the core courses are well balanced. You start to get kind of the sense that this is a standard financial engineering, quant finance type of program. You're covering derivatives. The things I think that they are covering above and beyond, which are even better, is that they are doing econometrics with machine learning. So most programs don't teach econometrics, which drives me absolutely crazy. I also like the fact that they are teaching time series econometrics. So what this means is that they are not just teaching you raw fundamental time series as a pie in the sky, hand wavy theoretical thing. They are tying it into econometrics. If you don't know, econometrics is just time series applied really to finance and the economy and the markets. So it's very, very relevant to the actual job market here. They're trying to make these courses very good. On top of this, I had dinner with the director and I had dinner with 2 students. So I got some more feedback, talked a little bit about some of the program's pros and cons, and talked about like finding jobs and networking and all that, trying to really get a feel for this. I've also presented as part of these research seminars, I believe 2 years now in a row. I've done one in person, I've done one remote, and I am planned to do another one here remote in March. So I'm pretty excited about that. The other piece though that helps me focus on these programs to figure out, is this a good program? Because every program out there is going to list derivatives, financial markets or capital markets, statistics, probability, econometrics. Like, you can throw anything out there, but it doesn't really mean anything. Fordham has answered my questions and given me quite a bit of detail on the textbooks they're using. I actually own quite a few of these textbooks, so that makes me very happy. I know the rigor and the quantity and quality of kind of the programs and the readings are there. I say quantity because you don't want to have too many chapters covered or too few chapters covered. But let me just show you guys a few of these that I have and that I like, and I'll explain a little detail around that. The first one here is going to be Essentials of Investments. It's by Bodie. So Bodie, Kane, and Marcus. I loved this book. I absolutely loved this book. I had this in business school. I always thought this was one of the best books I had on just learning the fundamentals of investments. The reason the fundamentals of investments is so important as a quant is because you're going to have to come back and figure out how the products work, talk to the businesses who are nice and fuzzy and friendly people, but they don't understand a lot of the layering and the math and the quantitative pieces going into estimating these behind the scenes. This book, though, is absolutely amazing. I loved reading it when I was in my undergrad in finance. It does a great job at covering a variety of different financial products and how they work and function. This gives you, I think, a solid foundation of core traditional finance, which is what we're going to be modeling here. And then these other topics here we'll talk about in a second layer on the complexity from a quantitative perspective here. So I think this is a great book to have. I've read it, again, many times. Even in my career, I have to model something and I feel stupid. I don't understand some of the inner workings of it. I will go back often to this book and just kind of read up on it. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's been, over, I don't know, since undergrad, over a decade here. Now for derivatives, they're going to use Big Hole. So there's Big Hole and Baby Hole. This is Big Hole, which is the book by John C. Hole. Again, it's options, futures, and other derivatives. This book's kind of a staple. It covers a ton of material. I was excited to see, though, that the book is 37 chapters. So let me be real with you guys. You will not cover this in a semester, at least not meaningfully. They cover chapters 1 to 7, 10 to 13, 15, 19, and they skim parts of 8 and 9. That just gives you a little bit of insight of what I'm looking for in these programs. I'm trying to see, are they covering enough material to be in depth and, interesting and cover kind of that breadth of, topics that you need to cover in a quant program. But at the same time, are they focusing down enough and not trying to cover an entire textbook? Because for many of you that know, when I was in my financial engineering master's at Michigan, so the program's dead and gone now. They have a new one, completely different. But the old one, they were trying to cover 2 textbooks every chapter in one semester course, and it was complete chaos and you learned absolutely nothing. So seeing that they are targeting and focusing and picking out specific chapters gives me the idea that they are trying to engineer these courses to optimize the learning and get down the fundamentals and the foundations without wasting too much time on kind of fringe products or things that most students are never going to see. Even derivatives themselves, I feel like a lot of students never will touch in a career, but at least you're covering the core fundamental basics so you can kind of dive in if you need to, and that's the route you end up taking as a career here. Now, the other books they have with the machine learning and econometrics ones, I own actually both of these books. But let's start off with the fact that they are using Wooldridge's book. So Introductory Econometrics, A Modern Approach. I have a book review on this if you guys want to go review that. But I think that book is probably the best fundamentals book. It covers just basic statistics for economics. It gives economic examples and brings in some theory to understand it. He does a very, very good job, Jeffrey Wooldridge here, the author of the book, at actually covering the assumptions behind each model and how you always use the simplest model. And then when the world fails and it doesn't work, like academia, then you go from this model to that model to this model, or your data is not the same. So there's even chapters covering, cross-sectional, which is like the beginning of it. So OLS regression and weighted least squares and all that. And then towards the advanced section of the book, he starts talking about different data structures like time series and panel modeling and the models behind those and the structures and putting those together. Again, I think that book in itself is one of my favorites. I actually have purchased a copy for my employees that I carry around with me. So at the office right now, so I'm at the home office here, which you can see in the background here. When I go into the actual office where my employees are at, that's one of the books that I actually have on site because it has all the fundamental basics and it's not nonsensical garbage like much of the internet. So that book is probably the golden grail of where I reference a lot of modeling and assumptions and testings and the pros and cons of those. He does a great job at looking at that from an economic standpoint as well as a statistical, high rigor academic kind of output as well. And then what you guys probably would expect as well is going to be an introduction to statistical learning. Again, it's by James Whitten, Hasty, and Tim Sharani. So this book, I believe, yes, this book I'm pretty sure, is actually free online. If you go to my website, I have a link to it. Maybe I'll link my website below. You can go to fancyquantnation.com, click on like resources or books or whatever, and go to free. This is my absolute favorite book. Again, this one's with applications in R. I believe there's a Python version out as now as well. It covers a lot of the foundational principles of machine learning. And of course, I have not taken their courses, right? I haven't sitting in their classrooms, but I can only imagine looking at economics and quantitative finance problems, applying traditional statistics and econometrics, applying now the machine learning to those sorts of problems, looking at how the pieces are working together. Again, 2 top-notch books here as well with good rigor. They're not trendy, machine learning for finance books, which there are many of them out there, which I've not yet found a great one. I'm reading one now I kind of like, but those 2 books, I think, teamed together with some industry expertise is going to make that class very, very good here. Machine learning is very trendy. This will make you more marketable as a student as well, but also help you tie all the pieces together. And then for the time series econometrics books here, so there's going to be 2 books that are going to be on here. So I purchased this book last year, which is Analysis of Financial Time Series. Again, because it was part of Fordham's textbooks, it was part of a few other programs as well. I thought it was a great book that would be a good addition to my collection here. To my absolute surprise, Say's book, so it's by Rui Say. This book has been just amazing. I've actually fallen in love with this book quite a bit, not because it's groundbreaking and cutting edge and completely new. I think that Say has done a great job of putting the theory of time series in the book, applied to quantitative finance with programming on real world examples to tie all of this together here. And then of course, one of the other textbooks that it's going to be referenced that they actually use is going to be Time Series Analysis by James Hamilton. This is considered the Bible of time series. I love this book. I think it is often out of the grasps of those in a master's program. This is probably closer to a PhD program, and more specifically, anyone who's very, very mathematically focused on finance. That book is very detailed in itself. I think it goes a little too far in depth. Again, if you don't have a very strong mathematical background, it's going to be hard to grasp here. Now, depending how that is teamed up and taught, again, the time series econometrics class actually has, I think, 2 textbooks, talks about just those 2 textbooks. So it just has those 2 textbooks, but it has the chapters covered in there. Again, teaming them together, I'm looking at the chapters that are covered in these. So the chapters covered in Hamilton's book, just to give you a little bit of insight on how this program is being put together. Chapter 5, which is maximum likelihood estimation. That is one of the key fundamental pieces of statistical estimation here. And the fact that they're covering it in this greater depth, I think is a good indication they're trying to focus on those fundamental principles. Chapter 7 on asymptotic theory. So again, when they converge, when they do not converge. This is critical as well because my whole career is basically built on time series, and more specifically on stationarity testing and failures of stationarity testing. Whole other topic here, but so understanding again chapter 7 with the asymptotic theory is important, and then finally they round this off with chapter 22, modeling time series with changes in regime. In the marketplace, we see this a lot. So you see things that are stationary over very specific time frames. Finance is very non-stationary. If you can find regime shifts, you can actually measure stability and stationarity within specific time frames. Again, all these things they're covering in this class make me very excited. The 2 textbooks they are using for that, though, Say's book and also Hamilton's book, I think is a good combination. I think it pays kind of a respect here to the program on how they're trying to pick out the very most important topics, just focusing in on those and not wasting a bunch of time on saying, I'm an adjunct professor, I'm Dmitry Bianco, I'm going to show up here and just haphazardly teach you a class. I think this program is spending a lot of time at looking at the core fundamentals, what's really going to add value, and focusing on that in depth instead of just trying to cover a textbook that's fun and floofy and I don't know. Let's just cover all the chapters because it'll be a good time. I like that they're kind of jumping around and focusing on the most critical chapters. And just as a little final note here on Say's book, one of the chapters they do cover, which I think is important to mention, is extreme value theory. So again, putting all these real world applications together in these courses is beneficial. I'm not going to go through all of the courses or anything else like that, but I will notice their programming for finance books. I do not own any of them. I have not programmed in C++ in many, many, many years. I don't do it for a career either. But one thing I would like to note here is that I think Fordham's program is very much like an up and coming Baruch program. So for those of you that don't know about Baruch focuses more on quant dev. And I say that because the people I've run across over my career that come from Baruch, they tend to be more programming focused and not as research theoretical focused, which is kind of odd because I've attended presentations of Jim Gatherall, for example, very in-depth, very mathematical, interesting topics, for example. But the students that tend to come out of Baruch are quant devs. You'll see here too with Fordham, again, there's a lot of heavy emphasis on C++ programming. Again, it comes from how the program's structured and designed. You're going to get a nice, well-rounded general finance education. At least that's what they're telling you as well. But realize there is going to be a heavier programming part to Fordham's program than I think many, many other programs. And I'm going to kind of touch now on the job placement a little bit, just because they gave me a few examples of people who gained employment within 3 months of graduation. Again, actuary, software engineer, senior quantitative associate, quantitative research analyst, quantitative risk consultant, quant dev, so software engineering, financial modeling associate, and desk strategist. Now, again, that's covering the quant space more or less, consulting, analyst, research. But I would argue jobs like a desk strategist, a quant dev, and an actuarial software engineer are going to be more heavily focused on C++. I think this is where the program actually stands apart a little bit. If you're wanting to do quant dev, you're looking at Baruch. I think the competition to just apply to get into Baruch is a little too high. I'm not going to go on the rest of their program here. I think Fordham is actually a really good option to go into if you're wanting to do quant dev, if you're wanting to kind of get into that heavier programming space and understand kind of the mechanics behind the application, kind of implementation of a lot of the quantitative finance topics here. Okay, so now just the other things that make the program stand a little bit differently, a little bit apart here. It's part of the business school. As many of you know, I am not a fan of business schools in general. I tend to, look down upon them somewhat. I think, though, they are doing a good job here. I think the director, Ching, is doing a great job at taking a program that was in the business school, heavily entrenched in this, and she's really starting to modernize it. One of the big focuses I hope you guys realize here, if you start to look through their website, for example, they're doing a lot of projects with the industry. So again, she has great connections to the industry. Myself has, come and spoken and everything. I've looked at some of the lists of the other attendants that present and give projects that are industry practitioners that are speaking. You're going to get to interact with really good people. It's also located in New York City. So I went to present and I almost took the train up to the Bronx, which is where, Fordham University is at. But no, they are down at the business school down in Manhattan here, where all the professionals and industry practitioners are going to be here. So you're going to get to rub shoulders with them. The program is doing a job, I think, that is much better than most programs at trying to get them onto industry projects. Why? Because when I go to review resumes as someone hiring, I'm looking to see, do you have actual experience, right? A 3-month internship is great, and they're working on that piece as well. But having longer projects, so as I've mentioned in other videos, quant finance projects can take 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months. I need someone dedicated to this. The fact that Fordham is able to do these sorts of projects and team up with the industry, I think, is what's making them stand apart from other programs that are just kind of churning you through this process, doing some internships here. They have all of these standard career services that you would expect. They have one-on-one career advising, career spotlight series, workshops and group sessions, alumni networking sessions, on-campus and virtual recruiting, company site visits, mock interviews, and corporate information sessions. Again, Fordham, I don't think is that big name, right? You're not going, oh, it's Columbia, NYU, Carnegie Mellon, right? You're not going to be jumping out of your seat for it. But I think the fact that they are positioned in Manhattan, again, Ching's done an amazing job in the last few years of kind of turning this program into a more competitive program in itself, bringing in some of her contacts as well. So you're getting to kind of network with people in quant finance and Wall Street in general. I think you're starting to see that it's the big downside to Fordham is going to be it just doesn't have the name recognition right. It's not that big Columbia school or Princeton or whatever. But I think the location of it, the career services, the academic rigor and the structuring of the program make this a far better program than probably most of them out there. Again, it's not cheap. Tuition in 2023 was $66,000. If you include fees and everything else, it's a little bit more than $75,000. So it's comparable with the other programs. I think the location makes it great. I think the application of the material, the educational material you're going to be learning in classes applied to the real world. There are 2 industry practitioners teaching there as well, so you're going to get real hands-on experience here. It's not just going to be the textbooks. Again, I focus heavily in my reviews on the academic rigor, as we spent like 15 minutes talking about textbooks. I think they're teaching good, solid material that will well prepare you for the industry. The 3-year average cohort size, so cohort is all the students in the program, is going to be 26. That is very, very small compared to many other programs. When I pulled up, I have an email here from one of the alumni asking what they liked about the program, what they didn't like about the program. Again, they talked about how the alumni group gets together usually 2 to 3 times a year. Again, you're in New York City. A lot of the students are going to get placed there. It's easy to get together as alumni. You start to really connect and build a solid group. So I think that's important here. When you go to these programs that have 100, 200 students or whatnot, you cannot know everybody. It's hard to network and meet people. You end up with a lot of segregation here. With a smaller program, you're going to get more one-on-one time with the professors. You're going to get more one-on-one time with other students and get to really know each other. So that's kind of the benefit of the program as well. One of the cons here, so now what I don't like about the program, one of the alumni mentioned here, they did not like that some of the preliminary courses were mandatory in statistics, finance, and programming here. They thought that you could perhaps speed this up and get through it quicker. Yeah, I get this because I went to a program where they did a summer boot camp and they rushed everyone through it. But I felt like it didn't really cover the right courses for the right people. So perhaps if they don't make all the preliminary runs mandatory, which I don't really know this, I should have dug more into this. Maybe I'll talk about this more in the 2024 review. Again, having the fundamentals, I know it can be annoying and it seems like a waste of time here, but I think this is something that's important to make sure you have covered, because a lot of times people go, oh, Dimitri, I know statistics, I know finance, I've taken one class on it. And then I start talking to them and realize they have no idea what's going on. So I think while this might be a frustration for some students taking these preliminaries, this could be an advantage. When you look at their actual website as well, it says students whose exam results do not meet the minimum standards will be required to take relevant foundational courses first and postpone courses later. I think this is good. I think it is good that they are trying to do the foundational pieces. You're trying to take those basic courses to make sure that you know what you're doing here. The other piece I think that is a downside here, as I've mentioned, is going to be the branding. Like Fordham is Fordham, right? Like I didn't even know it existed. I just happened to come upon it. I had some network contacts. We were talking and I ran into, Ching, who's the director here. And we started talking even more and I really liked the program, but it's not really on the radar of almost anyone. Like if you start to go to QuantNet, they were ranked 21st here, I believe, in 2024. The reason for that is their job placement numbers are a little bit lower here. I would argue it's probably because, again, Fordham is focusing on placing students in good quant finance jobs. They're not just trying to put students anywhere that a job will get placed. I would also argue from talking to Fordham that they are trying to be honest with you as a student and honest in these rankings and reviews. So many of the programs I see that have 70, 80, 90, 100% job placement, that's not really true. I've found out from many programs talking to them, which shocked me. They only present like the top 70% job placement rate, right? Again, that's 100% job placement because you keep the top 7, you drop the bottom 30 here. Again, the salary ranges that were reported, again, on QuantNet is $101,607. To be honest, that's very reasonable. That makes a lot of sense here. That's about the industry standard. I pay around there when I do hiring as well for quants. So this, I think, aligns with the fact that Fordham is trying to be transparent. They're trying to be honest with students. They're not trying to say they're 100% fulfillment rate. And I know that many programs that are claiming that are lying because their students then come to me after they graduate looking for jobs. And yet when I go online and look, guess what? They're not placed in jobs. They're still looking for jobs here. And then oddly enough, I think probably the biggest downfall of the program in itself is it's in a business school, but I feel like there's not enough work on the students with kind of culturing them. So again, quants are typically non-Americans here. I think they could do a better job at trying to get them involved in more conversational topics here. So when I've presented there in the past, I had the first session, which was virtual, and it was amazing. There was like 1 million questions and it was like stellar. And then I did an in-person one and it was very quiet with very minimal questions here. Again, I think the networking piece is very hard to teach to quants in general. I think the program though could spend more time on kind of getting the students involved in more question asking when people come to present. I know this sounds like me picking on it, but these are the sorts of things I think that impact job placement numbers as well. So if you have students that are very excited, that are very talkative, that can communicate clearly, which is a lot to ask from a quant who has a very deep background in mathematics and statistics and, programming and all that. I think that it's hard to teach that, but I think that's where they need a little bit more improvement here. I think you'll start to see higher job placement. The other big downside with this is Fordham's kind of unknown, as I mentioned. This makes it hard to get going because companies don't say, oh, NYU, and then they go out and do a bunch of hiring. They go, Fordham, where's that at again? And so these sorts of things are kind of the downfall here. I think the program as well is rigorous. It's well structured. It's well put together. The career placement, I think, could use a little bit of help just in the fact of a little bit more networking and branding here. So if more companies know who you are, again, polishing the students up a bit more with interview prep, I think would make their job placement numbers jump. And I think you'd actually see them jump in the rankings as well on the other rankings. But for me, they are definitely a recommendation. They have made the honorable Fancy Quant mentions here in 2023. And I only ranked 4 programs this year in 2023. So this last year here. And there's a reason that Fordham made that list here. I think they are one of the better programs out there. I think they're just vastly underranked. Again, if you're wanting a good, solid, rigorous program, good opportunities to network because you're in close to New York City. Again, a director that cares, that's actually changing the program quite a bit and trying to make it better and better. So I think those of you, if you watch Fordham, they will start to kind of rise further in the other rankings as well. Overall, it's a really good program. I think there's a bit of a focus towards the quant dev side, so more of the programming application side of this. But overall, I've been quite happy with the materials they've had, with the performance of the program, with the interactions I've had with the students. So anyways, that's my take on Fordham. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And as always, until next time.